Imagine being born into a world where survival feels like a cruel game of chance. Plagues, famines, wars, you name it. Some eras in history were so brutal, they make modern problems look like a walk in the park. Today, we're diving into in 5 periods that could easily claim the title of the worst times to be born in human history. These are stories of suffering, chaos, and resilience. Let's get started. Number 1. Europe during the Black Death, 1347 to 1351. First, let's head to mid-14th century Europe, right in the grip of the Black Death. If you were born around 1340, your life was a roll of the dice, and the odds weren't good. The Black Death, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, spread by fleas on rats, was a catastrophe like no other. From 1347 to 1351, it killed 30 to 60% of Europe's population. Tens of millions of people wiped out in a few years. Picture yourself as a kid in a medieval village. Your neighbor starts coughing up blood, then your family gets these swollen, painful lumps called buboes. Days later, they're gone, and you might be next. No one knew why or how to stop it. Doctors? They were clueless, wearing creepy bird masks and suggesting cures like rub a live chicken on yourself or drink this potion of crushed gems. Yeah, no help there. Surviving the plague wasn't the end of it. With farmers dead, food was scarce, trade collapsed, and towns turned into ghost villages. Riots broke out, religious fanatics roamed the streets, and mobs attacked anyone they blamed, Jews, witches, you name it. The air reeked of death, with bodies piling up faster than anyone could bury them. Being born here meant growing up in a world of fear and loss, with no safety net. Not exactly a dream childhood. Number 2. Europe during the Great Famine, 1315 to 1317. Next, let's go to the early 14th century, just a few decades before the Black Death, to the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317. If you were born around 1310 in Europe, you were stepping into a nightmare of hunger and despair. This wasn't just a bad harvest, it was a climate disaster. Starting in 1315, relentless rain and cold weather, part of what's called the Little Ice Age, ruined crops across the continent. Wheat, barley, oats? Done. Fields turned to mud, and food production tanked. As a kid, you'd wake up to an empty stomach every day. Families ate their seed grain, then their livestock, then anything they could find, grass, roots, even tree bark. In some places, people turned to cannibalism just to survive. Historians estimate 10 to 25% of the population died from starvation or related diseases. Villages emptied, and cities weren't much better, with beggars and corpses lining the streets. It wasn't just hunger. Malnutrition weakened everyone, making diseases like dysentery and typhus even deadlier. Parents couldn't feed their kids, and many abandoned them to fend for themselves. If you were born into this, your early years were a constant battle against hunger and cold, with no guarantee you'd see your next birthday. And with no understanding of climate or sanitation, people could only pray for relief that didn't come for years. Number 3. Europe during the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. Finally, let's fast forward to the early 17th century, specifically during the 30 Years' War, from 1618 to 1648. Born around 1610 in Europe, especially in what's now Germany, you were in for a brutal life. This war, fueled by religious and political rivalries, turned Central Europe into a slaughterhouse. Up to 8 million people died from violence, starvation, or disease by the time it ended. Imagine being a kid in a small village. Armies, Catholic, Protestant, mercenaries stormed through, burning homes and stealing food. Your family's livestock? Gone. Your house? Torched. If you're lucky, you're just homeless. If not, you're caught in the fighting or worse. Soldiers didn't spare civilians. Looting, rape, and murder were everyday horrors. Some regions lost half their population. The war also crushed the economy, spiking food prices and causing widespread famine. Diseases like typhus spread in filthy, crowded conditions. Growing up here meant scavenging for scraps, dodging soldiers, and hoping you didn't catch a fever. Peasants had it worst. Nobles and armies treated them like collateral damage. If you survived childhood, you were tough as nails, but the scars would last a lifetime. Number 4. The Toba Supereruption, circa 74,000 BCE. Now let's go way back to around 74,000 BCE when the Toba Supereruption rocked what's now Indonesia. If you were born around this time, you were one of the earliest modern humans, and you picked the worst possible moment. Toba was no ordinary volcano. It was a supervolcano, spewing so much ash and sulfur into the atmosphere that it triggered a global volcanic winter. Temperatures plummeted, sunlight dimmed, and plants died off for years, possibly a decade. As a kid in a small hunter-gatherer band, you'd face a world turn hostile. Your family relied on hunting and foraging, but game vanished, and edible plants were scarce. Starvation was a constant threat, and your group might have fought others for the last scraps of food. Some scientists think Toba pushed humanity to the brink, reducing our population to as few as 10,000 people, a genetic bottleneck we barely survived. No shelters, no agriculture, no medicine, just you, your clan, and a frozen, ash-covered world. If you made it through childhood, you were tough, but the odds were stacked against you. Toba wasn't just a bad time. It was nearly the end of us all. Number 5. The fall of the Western Roman Empire, 410 to 476 CE. Finally, let's visit the 5th century CE, during the fall of the Western Roman Empire, roughly 410 to 476 CE. Born around 400 CE in Rome or its provinces, you were born into a crumbling world. The once mighty empire was unraveling under invasions, economic collapse, and internal chaos. Barbarian tribes like the Visigoths and Vandals sacked cities, including Rome itself in 410 and 455. Imagine being a kid in a Roman town. One day, your family's villa is looted by invaders. Food supplies dwindle as trade routes break down, and taxes crush what's left of the economy. Your parents whisper about barbarians at the gates, but the Roman legions can't protect you anymore. They're overstretched or bribed. Famine and disease, like malaria, spread as sanitation systems fail. Some estimates suggest the population of Rome dropped from 1 million to under 100,000 in decades. If you lived in a frontier province, you faced constant raids. Cities burned, and survivors fled or were enslaved. Even if you avoided violence, starvation and exposure were real threats. No schools, no stability, just a world where the Pax Romana was a fading memory. Growing up here meant surviving in a lawless, collapsing society with no safety net. Why these times were the worst? What makes these 5 periods the worst times to be born? The sheer scale of suffering. The Black Death brought death and panic. The Great Famine starved millions. The 30 Years' War was decades of violence. Toba nearly ended humanity. The fall of Rome was a slow-motion collapse where security vanished. In each, you were powerless. No science, no safety nets, just survival against forces you couldn't comprehend.